Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Talk Junkies. It has been a couple of weeks since we've had a podcast due to the Kansas City Chiefs.
Woo! Woo!
We're in the Super Bowl. It's pretty exciting stuff because us three here are pretty avid Chiefs fans. So there's that. But we're back at it. We're ready to go. And I was watching Brian from High Impact Vlogs sometime last week, and he was just doing a video on Missouri gun legislation that's coming out. And he had recommended Pat here, and he's going to go over all the details. There'll be links in the description below on where to find him. And I saw him. I watched his video, and I was like, man, I got to get this guy in the podcast. So I hit you up with a comment, and you graciously, responded fairly quickly, and then you emailed me, and here we are. How's it going?
Yeah, it's going great. It's wonderful to be here tonight with you guys. By the way, I got to say this because my brother would be very, very upset if I didn't. Go Vikings.
I mean,
boy.
Yeah.
That's good
luck.
luck. Good luck.
Maybe next year.
Yeah.
Maybe next year. Yeah. I doubt it. But,
2034, that's the year. That's the Vikings year.
Yeah. Well, actually, I was going to say 2036. Yours is nearer, so
yeah.
I think you've got it.
Maybe I gave him too much credit. I don't know.
Glasses half full with that one. I mean, it's been 50 years for the Chiefs, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. And by the way, I'm proud that the Chiefs are. I come from Minnesota originally, by the way, so the Vikings are popular in my family. I'm not as much of a sports guy, though.
And that's fine. What you are is someone who's doing their due diligence on trying to protect our rights, and I greatly appreciate that. I think that's how we're going to start the podcast off tonight, man. And tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got to where you are, and then we'll hit it off with the gun legislation.
Sure. It's basically Truth, Money, and Freedom Podcast is the name of the YouTube channel. And I represent a core group of about 500 folks on Discord. And it's Truth, Money, and Freedom on Discord. And the original reason we did the YouTube channel was basically to let people know we were on Discord, because we have this chat group, and it's kind of a Truth, Money, and Freedom chat group. We talk about everything from gold and silver to stocks and bonds to psychology, philosophy. We talk about money. We talk about cryptocurrencies. We kind of cover it all there, even conspiracy and conspiracy theory. So the whole thing was actually to get a YouTube channel out there where we just let people know we existed and if they could come in and join us. But along the way, I talk about things that interest our group. I represent, like I said, a larger group. But along the way, basically, I'm a libertarian, so, full disclosure up front. I was discovering that when I was talking about libertarian things that actually are interesting to libertarians, we were starting to get more views. So, but that's what we do in our chat anyway. So I was taking time away from the chat to do it on YouTube, and then we're just getting views. But the thing in Missouri is something that caught my attention last year. I did a video on YouTube, and here's where I'm going to admit to you, something I did wrong, and I'm going to let you know I'm ashamed. And that was I did on Bill 367, which is the same bill I'm about to talk about, which is now 588. It was fake news, and I perpetuated it as real news, and it made it look like the bill was going to pass. There was really nothing anyone needed to do. It looked like it was just an easy pass, and it was about to be signed by the governor. It was a completely fake news article put out by the Senate. So when I found out that it was fake news was August of last year. I was so ashamed I didn't even say anything in the YouTube channel about it at the time, that I fell for fake news. I didn't pick up the phone, call my senator or call my rep to find out if this story was true. I didn't do it. So what I decided to do was just get involved when I found out this bill was being reintroduced again this year. Senate Bill SB 588. The House version is HB 1637. So I'm doing my part. And also, too, in order to prevent any more fake news from coming out about this, so the real information can come out, so the voters of Missouri would know about this, basically the constituents, the residents of Missouri would know everything in a timely fashion. I'm actually talking to the folks that are doing it, the representative, the senator, and also, too, a couple of lobbyists. and I'm getting fresh information out as quickly as I can. And what this is the Second Amendment Preservation Act. And what this basically does is, you guys are in Missouri too, is sets us up as a sanctuary state for the Second Amendment. In other words, the federal government can pass whatever laws it wants, but they really don't apply in Missouri. And if they want help from local law enforcement, that includes highway patrol, sheriff's offices, police officers, they can't get it. So the federal government is not set up to enforce their own laws in the individual 50 states. They have to rely on local resources to do it. This bill would take away their ability to do that. So I'm very passionate about this. I'm spending a lot of time on this. I'm getting as much information out as possible, but it's really all about keeping our Second Amendment, because actually we're seeing a lot of tyrannical stuff coming out of the federal government in regards to the Second Amendment. Now, I know this doesn't make me popular with folks, but Trump has not been a fan of the Second Amendment. He's certainly said things and done things that are against the Second Amendment. And so we know we can't rely on Trump to help us with this. We're going to have to go state by state and secure our sovereignty. And that's kind of my message. I mean, it's not just for us, gang. It's for our kids. It's for our grandkids. We can't just sit back while these things happen. And by the way, other states have awesome bills too, but I'm in Missouri and I'm Missouri centric, and I'm excited about the Missouri bill. But Oklahoma has the same bill, by the way. And many people in Oklahoma may not even know about it. And I need to make a couple of phone calls to see how much support that bill has so I can start actually talking about it.
I didn't know about the Oklahoma one. Which makes sense because I live in Missouri. But the first thing I heard about one was Missouri coming up with it first, basically. But it's good to see that other states are either following suit or doing the same thing at the same time.
Yes, they are. And you're right. And conservative states are doing this, by the way. I don't think Missouri's alone in seeing basically our rights being stripped away, peeled away like an onion, from the federal government on the Second Amendment side of things. The right to bear arms shall not be infringed. And they're constantly being infringed. We need to take a stand on this.
100%. So how much favor does this bill have? Or what's the likelihood? It does. Okay. So how does the process work? When is it voted on this year, and what's the likelihood of it actually happening?
Okay, gotcha. That's actually a two-pronged question, because there's the Senate side and the House side of the bill. The Senate side looks pretty promising. There's a lot of support in the Senate to get this done. So it doesn't mean it's a cakewalk. It doesn't mean that it's an easy passage, but it just looks really good. It looks very favorable. On the House side, we're missing co-sponsors to even get this thing, into committee. So that's what I'm lately on my channel, is letting people know, call the Missouri House members. And by the way, I'll have links down below in the section. I'll provide you guys links as well, where you can see who the co-sponsors are, what districts they are and everything. But we've got about half of the co-sponsors that we need to get this thing into committee. So the other half, and by the way, I am not 100% sure we even have any Democrats co-sponsoring this as of yet. I haven't looked as of Friday, but before Friday, I don't think there was a single one. So this is just Republicans interested in this bill. As far as a date for hearings, that's to be announced. We don't know yet, but I will announce those on my channel as soon as that does happen. For those in Missouri who can't go to a hearing at the Capitol in Jeff City, we also have a process where you can fill out what's called a witness form. And that's on Calzone's site, and that's MoFirst, MoFirst.org. So as opposed to actually showing up at the Capitol, you can sign a witness form as though you were there. So, and that gets printed out by Ron Calzone and gets handed to your senator, your representative. So I'll give links to that down below as well.
That's what's up.
So this is a work in progress, gang. This is a work. We're all working real hard to just, get people to call their representatives and their senators so they know they want this bill.
I'm just trying to think of a good question where it brings up why this is so fundamentally important to to American citizens to have this, because the majority of arguments I hear whenever I hear gun control, people on the other side, they talk about school shootings mainly and terrorist attacks, and that's the biggest argument. Honestly, I can't even really think of another one. To be honest with you, whenever it comes to gun control, and just like how do you? Because I'm sure you've gotten into debates with people just of the general morality of it all. What is your opinion whenever somebody would come to you with a question? Well, what do you like? How do we stop these terrorist attacks? And if we, like look at Australia, like they changed their laws and they took away all the guns, and then all of a sudden all these attacks, were lessened and all that, because that's just what would you normally say to that? Just out of curiosity on the moral side of it.
You bet. In fact, I can not only tell you what my opinion is, I can tell you what has actually happened in Missouri since we passed constitutional concealed carry in 2016. Violent crime is down some 70% since that was passed. So that gives you the obvious answer right away. The more possibility of people conceal carrying, the less possibility of crime. And that's because criminals don't want to get shot and killed. So I'm sure you guys know this. I don't know if you guys covered this, but used to be when someone was holding up a convenience store in the state of Missouri, that guy, if the guy behind the counter was concealed carry, I meant the guy holding up the convenience store didn't make it out alive. I meant there's been a lot of stories like that in Missouri. It was never covered in the mainstream media. The more guns there are out there, basically with responsible constitutional concealed carry people who train, the less crime there will be. So second part to this is my grandmother passed away in January, and she had dementia. So the last 3 years we didn't have very meaningful conversations, but she was an anti-gun person herself. That was her opinion. And she knows I'm pro-gun, I'm pro-Second Amendment. And she asked me, this was about 6 years ago, she said, what if someone went into my granddaughter's, her great-great-granddaughter's school and shot up the kids, including my granddaughter, wouldn't I want to take away the guns? That's a horrible thing, basically when this happens. I mean, obviously this, okay, and I'll get into several more aspects of this, but she asked me if I'd get rid of the guns if that happened to my granddaughter. And I said, why would I take away everyone's right to self-defense because of what happened to my granddaughter? I don't even understand the question from that angle, because that's exactly what I'd be doing if I became a proponent of taking away the guns.
I've had the exact same opinion, and I've broke it down very, like, this is how I've always said it. Evil people find a way to do evil things. If you take away their guns, well, they're going to get a gun on the black market, or they're going to design a bomb, or they're going to come in with something. Evil people, like, evil's just in the world. They find their way to do evil things. Guns are not, like, taking away guns does not solve the problem. It doesn't solve the problem of evil people or people with mental disabilities or whatever it is. It's this just top layer bullshit, in my opinion. You go, take away all the guns, and then all the problems are solved. The problem lies so much deeper than that, and you can't, in exactly what you said, you can't go and disarm everyone and take away their right in thinking that solves everything. Like, that's always been how I approach that. Evil people find a way to do evil things, and that's a horrible part of society, but taking away the guns does not solve the problem of evil people doing evil things.
Does not. And there's the one final aspect too that, and once again, I get arguments on this all the time. My gosh, if someone were armed at Sandy Hook, if one teacher was a concealed carry holder, that story may have been quite different. And yet teachers in states like Connecticut, some of the more, blue states where teachers just don't want to carry guns. But here in Missouri, they have no problem with it. So I guess it's a mentality that may be, jurisdictional between whether or not they're in a red state or a blue state. I don't know. But if teachers were armed, were concealed carry holders, or if there were literally half of the teachers concealed carry holders, some of these stories would have been quite different, I think.
I'm going to play the other side here just for the point of conversation, just devil's advocate a little bit on the fact that, not about the whole gun control thing or anything, but the fact that, like, you're talking about how in the blue states and stuff that some teachers don't want to have guns. I feel like you run into the problem with, you want someone to be armed, but there's so many issues with the training has to be so good and so well done that you can't have a student going into a teacher's desk, for example, and finding a gun. I mean, I remember we used to go into the teacher's desk in middle school and high school. I remember finding a bong in my biology teacher's desk. I was like, oh man, this is super dope. Like, that's what's up, miss. I'm not going to say her name. But I feel like you run into that issue if you either have people who aren't trained well enough, or like you said with the blue states, of teachers not wanting to do it in the first place, they're not going to do it effectively or well, and that's an issue. And then you have the side of that where you can make the training better, but at the end of that day, when the training follows like government mandated guidelines, we all know how well the government does stuff. We all know how well bureaucracy F's stuff up. So I don't know. It's just a hard, and like I said, I'm not agreeing with everything that I'm even saying right now. I'm doing it for the point of conversation. But that's the other side of it in my mind. If I were to have to play the other side, the big problem I run into is that the government seems to mess up a lot of stuff a lot of the time when it comes to small, like, bureaucratic issues. So I could see them not getting the training down proper. And that's something that you extensively need good training for. I mean, we've talked about education a lot, and I believe teachers are highly underpaid, but at the same time, I don't necessarily think they're underpaid for what they do right now. I think that our teachers need to be a lot better. I think the teachers need to do a much better job of teaching, and the curriculum needs to be much better, and we need to teach people better things. And then, pay them $100,000 a year or whatever. The same kind of principle applies to the whole gun thing. The training has to be supreme if we were to go that route, and that's not the problem, but the challenge that I see being an issue.
Yeah, I actually would agree with you on this. Like, for instance, your average sheriff or cop, they're out, blowing, 80, 90 rounds of ammo, once a month, every month, even though they're not shooting, during the course of their, thank God, most of them don't have to fire shots off. Mm-hmm. But they're constantly training. It's a never-ending process. And by the way, I'm an avid shooter myself. I don't get out as much as I used to, but I agree. If you're not out training, you shouldn't be carrying a gun. Unless, for instance, circumstances demand that you have a gun, even though you're not constantly training. But in most cases, I don't think that training is important. I'm not going to argue that point with you. In fact, I don't think that's a devil's advocate point. I think that's a common sense point. But as far as, teachers leaving guns inside their desks and stuff, I wouldn't see that. I'm more of a concealed carry holder kind of guy. It'd be on their person. It wouldn't be, left in their desk or anything.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying there is you would hope it would, and I agree with you there. It's just that, man, people make mistakes.
Yeah.
Problem, like I said, when you find a bong in a biology teacher's desk, like, anything can happen. Like, we're humans, we're flawed, and that's an issue that you run into. That's why I'm saying this. So the training, the certification, everything has to be to such high levels of. I guess I'm biased though too, because I'm also a big proponent of. It's funny. I see myself as a libertarian a lot of the times, not so much as Jesse, and probably not so much as not so much as yourself, Pat. But I see myself as a libertarian, but at the same time, I have a problem. Like, people hate this idea, but I think that everybody should have everybody of all ages, not just older, not after you turn 60. I think that every single person, after you have your driving test at 16, you should have a driving test every 5 years. And that would annoy a lot of people, but here's the thing. It's one day. It's one day every 5 years to make sure that you know how to operate your vehicle properly and use turning signals and actually know what you're doing. And I know that's not a very libertarian view, and that's the government having more control of our lives, so a lot of people don't like that. And I don't know, it's about finding that balance, I guess. It's a gray area.
Well, I personally disagree with teachers having guns in schools. Like, I'm all for the Second Amendment. I think it needs to be protected very, very much, and I think that right has been taken away slowly But as far as teachers having guns in schools, for the same reason that they talk about, oh, well, all guns need to be taken away solves the problem, that doesn't solve the problem either. I want to see us get to the initial problem that they're talking about, which is the mental state of these individuals who are committing.
That's the real issue.
Yeah, so I want us to and not have this bullshit left wing. All they're trying to do is take away guns for their own propaganda, and they're using this as fuel for that. But they never want to get to the real issue, which is the mental health of these individuals who are committing these crimes. And I think that there's a better way to go about it. And I don't even think you have to have guns in schools if you spend a little bit more time on better education and better upbringing at a young age for individuals and things like that. Like, nobody ever focuses on that.
Like mental wellness, awareness.
Mental wellness. Just there's so many other things. I don't think it has to get to the point to where teachers need guns in schools, because like what Johnny was talking about, I think that could also cause some problems too, in my opinion, with that. But I think that nobody gets down to the root issue, which is the mental wellness of these individuals, and how do we start to fix this, like, at the core of the problem. And then once I think that's what we need to be looking at. And taking away guns, obviously, I don't think is the answer at all.
Yep, that's interesting you should say that, because one of the things I've been saying for years is that anyone who wants to run for public office should probably undergo an MRI of their brain to make sure that their brain is functioning properly at the hippocampus level, because I think we have a lot of sociopaths and psychopaths in government positions.
Is the hippocampus is that reasoning? I can't remember. Is the hippocampus reasoning, or is that something else?
No, that's emotion.
Oh, okay.
Reasoning comes from the frontal cortex.
Okay.
Yep. So, and I say that jokingly, maybe.
But I feel you on this side.
But no, hang on. But doesn't that play well into your point about identifying mental illnesses and making sure that they don't have positions of power, whether it's one with a gun or one with a pen at a Capitol building somewhere?
Well, whenever it comes to politicians, I think the first thing we need to do is look at them not getting into the position for just money, because that's what it's come down to now. Is so many people and so many politicians just do things for money, and morality is completely tossed aside. Because we're not a capitalist nation anymore. We live in a corporate oligarchy where we're ran by corporations, and I think that's a big thing for me that needs to be fixed. We need to go back to where it's actually by the people for the people, and not just what makes money. Because morality gets misconstrued, and like nothing's of moral value on any political level anymore. It's all about keeping the corporations happy and making sure the money comes in. Which, honestly,
it's always about money.
Yeah,
I say it every podcast, but it's always about money.
That's my thing with politicians. I don't think that they should be able to take money at all. That's always been my thing. We basically, to put it simply, we need to have a higher standards for our politicians whenever it comes to their ability to take money from other people and like lobby, lobbyists and all that. I think that needs to be changed.
And the best leaders are the ones who do it out of the goodness of their heart and never wanted to be a leader in the first place.
But those are never the people that do it. It's always
I know.
Like you were saying, the psychopaths that are literally just out for their empire, build my empire. It's about me, not about everyone else.
They're attracted to jobs with power.
Oh, absolutely.
They're attracted to those jobs.
Yeah,
that's an issue, though. Those are not the people you want in that position.
Yeah,
that's every politician, though.
Agreed. But I agree with you. I mean, the old saying, you can't legislate morality, and you just can't. And the raising of kids, and let's go back to your point of the fact that we're not in a capitalist society. We haven't been for a very, very long time. In fact, you probably have to go pre-World War II, probably pre-World War I, before you can actually identify America as capitalist. And I did a podcast on this, gentleman. And right now, and this is going to shock many viewers, that have never heard this concept before, but the type of government we have in America is a special blend of socialism and corporatism. That's what we have here in America. We do not have a democracy. I could go through the Webster dictionary definitions of democracy, but we don't have that here. We don't have a constitutional republic, because that would mean that the Constitution would be the law of the land, And basically, all the public servants that we elect would be subservient to that document. We don't have that either. So what do we have? We have socialism. The evidence of this: Social Security, public schools, libraries. We can go down the list, but you guys get the point. And then we have the corporatism, as you had referred to. I used to call fascism, and I found out they've changed the definition at sometime after 1980, which is the blending together of government and large corporations for mutual interest against the interest and the will of the people. And so that's the type of government we have today.
Absolutely.
At the federal level.
That fits it perfectly.
We agree 100% there. We've brought it up several times on the podcast. We call it a corporate oligarchy.
Yeah, that's what we typically use.
Corporatism, corporate oligarchy, it's all the same thing.
That what you just said fits it even better, man. That hits the nail on the head with that.
Well, so right now, and we can kind of switch gears, and we're kind of free floating on this. So people are scared of AOC and scared of Bernie, getting into into seats of power, whether it be in the White House or in the House or in the Senate, and saying these guys are socialists. Well, holy crap. Everyone in Washington is a socialist. No one is shrinking government. No one is lowering taxes to any real degree here. So there are a bunch of socialists, unfortunately, in Washington, D.C. And as a libertarian, I feel very comfortable saying that. I know I've had arguments with folks before about this, and they say, no, the Republican Party is not socialist. I said, when's the last time you guys had someone who's running for president that said they were going to downsize government? And so they go, well, Ronald Reagan talked about that. And I said, no, actually, Ron Paul talked about it when he was running for office for president.
That's who I voted for when I turned 18.
That's
was Ron Paul.
That's the last guy you had.
Waste of a vote, right?
I don't care if it was a waste of a vote. Ron Paul was the guy that I wanted to get elected when I was 18 years old.
Yeah. Ron Paul's a good guy. I actually wrote him in.
That's what I did.
That would be 2008, 2012.
That's what I did. 2008, and I actually did not vote in 2012. So, my bad. Oops. But yeah.
Well, you know what? I don't yell at people or even try to give an argument for voting anymore. I'm pretty much done with that whole process myself.
Yeah, I think that
I'm not.
We've been so far down the rabbit hole, and like you said, we really haven't had a democracy since pre-World War I or pre-World War II, and it goes to show that we are in a day and age where we're so far past that to where you can't even, not necessarily convince someone, but reason with them or have a conversation about politics or what actually truly is going on without getting in an argument. And I think that's frustrating. And I don't think we're moving past it, and unless we have channels like what you have and what we have, and there are plenty of channels out there, but it just doesn't seem like enough because they've combated that, like you said, with your viewership and 2/3 of your views are just washed, and it's hard for us to get viewership as well. Like, I don't know. I just don't know if we see any change in that.
Yeah, I don't know, because the mass awakenings generally come with something catastrophic, unfortunately, gang. So in good times, you don't get awakenings. You just don't. Now, are we in good times? Well, I cover this on the podcast as well. We're very much into finance. We're tied into that. We watch this, and we're talking about on the bond level. So we're watching the bond market, which is what no one watches and no one understands. However, it tells you definitely what the future is. If you guys want a crystal ball, for what's going on in finance, it's in the bond market. Well, that's not the case anymore now, because the Federal Reserve is doing all the money printing in the repo market. And I'd hate to get into a conversation about the repo market and how it works and everything tonight, because it's kind of technical. But I just want to say this. There's no way to tell anymore what is going to happen financially. We should have gone through a collapse in 2008. The Federal Reserve came in and printed a bunch of money and gave it to the banks and said, here you go, gang. Sorry about all your gambling losses, but here, we're going to go ahead and cover those for you this time. And that means we paid those gambling losses. Well, in 2015, the whole system should have fallen apart again when they stopped the QE program, but it didn't, and we're right back to QE again. So basically, you guys talk about the Federal Reserve. You guys understand it. You guys know that it's a private corporation. It works at the behest of the U.S. government, the Treasury. They are not answerable to the people, and they are not answerable to the government either. And all they have to do is have someone from the government, from the Treasury, come up to them and say, "We need $1 trillion, please." And they say, "Fine, give us a bond. We'll give you the $1 trillion." And that's exactly what happens. And it's going on right now, literally at the rate of, like, I'm going to give you the number. This is going to blow your minds, gang. The repo market is daily. And I think it was Thursday of last week, the Federal Reserve printed up $740 billion in one day. One day. Almost $1 trillion in one day. Did you guys hear about this in your mainstream media?
No.
Did you hear about it in the newspapers? No one's talking about this. And this is our lot in life now, is big inflation, probably ending up with hyperinflation, much like is going on in Venezuela.
Which is, yeah.
So I'm sorry, that was probably a horrible, this is something else completely, but basically it is an important point that people have to understand. The inflation rate is rising, and it's not percent the Federal Reserve tells us. It's 10%. It's 10%.
Well, and that's honestly, like, you look at it on a base level, it should be blatantly obvious to everything. When you look at college prices and the prices of, honestly, just the average. Look at the price of a gallon of milk compared to minimum wage now, and the price of a gallon of milk compared to minimum wage 20 years ago. And see if those match up. See if those correlate at all. They don't. They're completely off the scales different.
They don't teach fundamental financial education in high school, and I think they absolutely should. They need to talk about how the Federal Reserve is privatized. They need to, because people would have been up in arms years ago, but they don't ever learn it in high school and anything. And
well, that's why they don't teach it.
Because you're right. They don't want riots in the streets, and they don't want, because it fundamentally takes away from the common man is all it does, and they did cast it into the shadows, and then all the billionaires make their billion, but we end up suffering in the end, basically with systems like that. That's one of the first things that needs to be changed as far as this nation goes, is the Federal Reserve being completely done away with.
The financial institutions in general.
Yeah,
financial institutions and education are probably our biggest two problems.
Absolutely.
Like, people may not see it that way. People may think of guns. People may think of everything else, all these other issues we have, foreign affairs. But at the end of the day, you fix the financial institution and the education institution, and everything else follows suit.
Both extremely corrupt institutions.
Yeah, and if you were to watch mainstream news or mainstream media, or you read the newspapers, those are the two things you're never going to see as headlines. You're never going to see, hey, we need to change the education system.
You'll see education reform during an election. You'll see education reform during an election. But that's it, though.
Brian from High Impact Vlogs, he made a great point, and he's made this point many times. It's the fact that all the stuff that you talked about, like guns and stuff, those are just small things to keep us distracted, when the real issue is the Federal Reserve. And never, ever do you ever hear it on CNN, Fox News, nothing. And you never will, because no one cares for some reason. I don't know why that is. I mean, obviously we care, we talk about it, but what could we honestly do? I mean, could we talk to our legislators in Missouri and try and actually do something about it?
No, not on this point, because we're all operating on the dollar. And the dollar is a worthless piece of paper backed by nothing. So we're working on a fake currency that we pay interest on. So are you guys familiar with Mike Maloney?
No.
Doesn't ring a bell.
You guys heard of Mike Maloney?
No.
Okay, gotcha. So I'm not going to get into the larger argument about how our money works. That's somewhat of an education. And by the way, for those who are watching this podcast today, Mike Maloney has a series of videos called The Hidden Secrets of Money. It's 10 episodes long. It'll take about 5 hours of your time to watch, but you will find out that you will get the education you did not get in high school or in college just by watching those 5 hours. The monetary system we have is completely immoral. Completely immoral. Do you know why we have money that is backed by nothing? We used to be backed by gold, by the way. That was taken away by Nixon in 1971. Yep. But the reason why we have money that's backed by nothing is so they can print it ad nauseum to fund world wars. That is why we have the money system we have now. And so that's what we're with. We happen to be dealing with this. They don't let gold and silver participate in the monetary system at this time. And so that means we'll just have never-ending wars. That's what the dollar represents right now, is just never-ending wars. And until we change that system, we're going to have never-ending wars.
I think, yeah, and we talked about that a little bit. I thought
we talked about some of this pretty recently, actually.
I thought it was more geared towards oil is why the money system is the way it is today, which fuels war.
Well, that's part of the war thing.
The petrodollar and constantly. I mean, like we talked about when we went to the Chiefs game, that we saw that interview with Trump, and he's just talking about the real reason we were in Iraq, wasn't it, or Afghanistan, was to stay there and control the oil. He said it on live television.
Yep. Now the dollar is the world reserve currency. So what that means is all oil, or not necessarily all oil right now, but literally going back 5 years ago, all oil that was ever traded in the entire world was traded with dollars. So that meant that Peru had to have a stash of dollars, cash, in order to buy oil from whoever they're buying it from. Everyone used dollars, no matter what country they were. So that's what made the dollar powerful. That's why we're the world reserve currency.
And yet
it's
the private institution, the Federal Reserve, that prints all this.
What's it called?
The petrodollar.
The petrodollar. Yeah.
Petrodollar. Yes.
So can you go
another nickname for the dollar?
Can you go as in deep to say, like, don't they select a chairman for the Federal Reserve every couple years, every 5 years, because I know it was Alan Greenspan for a while. And we talked about in the podcast. Yeah, and I don't know how long that goes. And how do they elect these people?
He was back in 2008 during the financial crisis.
Yeah.
Greenspan was.
No, that was Ben Bernanke.
What was Greenspan doing then?
Took over in 2006, I believe. Greenspan was chosen by Reagan and stayed literally until 2006. He was in there a long time. But they're not elected per se. I think they're selected by the President of the United States. He gets to select who the chairman of the Fed is. So I think that's the case. Now, I should look into that to be absolutely sure, but it, that's, for instance, Alan Greenspan being in as long as he was is because he was quite good at his job. He was very likable. He was very good at explaining things, but that didn't stop the fact that, this guy was actually operating a massive fraud, that he was, counterfeiting money. Anytime the Fed prints money, it's counterfeit. I'm telling you guys, this whole monetary system that we exist in right now is an absolute, utter, complete fraud. And it's a sham. And what's worse is they make us work to pay taxes with this money. We have to give up time for this magic money that they just keep printing, while we are losing value of the stuff that we have currently in our wallets. They just print up more, and we have to continue to pay taxes in the same currency that they keep printing up. It's a scam.
Because the money starts out with interest, basically. Because the U.S. government hands over a bond, they print the money, and then now we owe them interest that you can only pay. You can only pay with the U.S. dollar. So it's endless amounts of interest.
Well, no, it's unending. You can't ever pay it back.
You can't ever, which is a complete joke.
It's a scam.
That's correct. You see, I didn't even get there yet, and you are so spot on, man. You're absolutely correct. In order to pay the interest, you have to borrow more principal to pay the interest for the money that you already borrowed, because they only print the principal. They never print the interest. So you have to borrow principal next year to pay the interest from last year.
I just get angry every time I talk about this. I just get so angry because it's so easy to explain. Like we didn't, we just had a
nobody's interested
10-minute conversation. Everyone should be interested.
I know, but nobody is. I feel like I need to play with my nipples right now or something. Get the viewers to hey, pay attention.
Man, no, it pisses me off so much every time. And I learned about this for the first time about how the Federal Reserve was bullshit. Probably back when I was 17. I think I watched a documentary on it. It was a small section of the documentary. An individual went over every aspect of what he thought was wrong with society. And he had a whole section on the Federal Reserve and our monetary system about how it was bullshit. And I remember being 17, being like, "This is ridiculous." And it's still the same thing. And fundamentally,
But no, that's the thing is when you explain it, like everybody can understand it. You understood
it's
it when
not-
you were 17.
It's not some crazy mathematical thing.
It's just most people are uninterested. They just don't care.
And I think the reason, Pat, that and we've hit on this too, and Johnny made a good point. It's just we're so comfortable within our lives, to the point of the services that we get for being a part of this socialist society / corporate oligarchy. Like, how much are we willing to give up of our rights to be comfortable? And I think that Johnny hit it home that when he told me that when we were doing a podcast, I was like, that makes sense. Like, everyone, 350 million Americans, right, or 375, however many it is. Like, how do you keep everyone happy? And in a sense, they've done that, right?
Bread and wine, bread and entertainment, whatever it is. Bread and circus, that's the saying. Thank you.
But for me, it's not enough. You know, like that to me, that's not an answer. To me, that's not an excuse, and that's why we have this podcast. So go ahead, Jesse.
And we haven't gotten into conspiracy theory yet at all. And I don't want to hit on any conspiracy theory thing besides this one little thing that, because to tie it kind of back into what we were talking about as far as the Second Amendment and gun control, wouldn't it be ironic that right when they take away all the guns, all of a sudden that's when they flip the script, and then now they really start fucking us over, and we have no way to defend ourselves from this.
It's exactly what will happen
from this government. Is that almost like, I know that's conspiracy theory, and we've stayed away from that because everything else we said is absolutely factual. You can look this up, and obviously it's opinions. It's opinions too, but nothing conspiracy theory. But that's almost like what I'm seeing as far as to tie it all in together. Like once they take away the guns, then they can do whatever they want, and they can really give it to us, even though they've already been giving it to us real fucking hard. But
well, we need not even look at that as conspiracy theory, because actually, honest guys, we have history to look at. Hitler did this. And in fact, Hitler did it the same way Americans doing it. First, you register the guns, then you do red flag laws, then you do confiscation. That's exactly the same order the United States is doing it in. Hitler taught us how to do it. Republicans and Democrats are guilty of following the model and the template set up by Hitler. So I find it very amusing to remind legislators how Hitler did it. But Hitler did it in probably the I don't want to say it was the best way to do it, if you want to do it. In China and Russia, they just went to people's houses and said, "Give us your guns," and if they said no, they just shot them in the head. So that's another way to do it too. But you're correct. Once your guns are taken away, once the guns are gone, and by the way, let me remind you guys why we have the Second Amendment. I know you guys I'm sorry, to the larger audience, you guys probably know this. The reason we have the Second Amendment is if our government becomes tyrannical, we are to literally disassemble our government and rebuild it.
Yeah, we're basically supposed to go militia style.
Literally the most American thing you can do.
That's how we were founded as a country.
People forget this. Mm-hmm. Anyway, you can continue.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, and this is the primary reason why the Second Amendment was put in. And by the way, it was not mentioned this way in the Second Amendment, but it was mentioned this way in a letter from Thomas Jefferson to, I believe it was John Adams. That's why we need the Second Amendment, because we just got out of a tyranny. We're getting out of a tyranny. We need to put in some kind of safeguard that if our government somehow becomes tyrannical in the future, the people have a way out. And that way out is the right to bear arms. So when the government has tanks, RPGs, 50 caliber machine guns, and we can't have those, well, the only reasonable weapon we have to fight back with is technically AK-47s and AR-15s. And what are the guns they're always talking about taking away? Mm-hmm. I keep forgetting. Can you guys remind me?
Assault weapons, ARs.
BB guns, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And I think another thing as well is actually the media and the exchange of communication and where we get information. I think is also a big part of that too. Not just guns, because that wasn't so much back then, but now technology has come in, and I think that they're also corrupting and influencing technology as well, which I think we need to take back. Like just a small thing that you talked about as far as YouTube being able to censor you and stuff like that, I think is ridiculous. I've heard arguments against it that it's a corporation and corporations should be allowed to do whatever they want to do.
I've made that argument before.
No, I wasn't going to say that you made that argument, but that's what I was referencing.
No,
that's what I was referencing.
I'll call myself out there, and I still stand by that statement.
I completely disagree with that. I think that it needs to, corporations, whenever it comes to something as important as communication and getting information out there, shouldn't be able to censor people. That people need the freedom to be able to say what they want and not be censored because a corporation doesn't agree with this. Especially when
that's correct.
When all you get your information from. Yes, exactly. So you're right. It's the First and the Second Amendment that they're attacking, which is.
So
I'm getting angry at this podcast.
My dispute to that, real quick. Hold up. My dispute to that, real quick, and we've talked about this before.
Yes, we have.
Multiple podcasts. I'll try to make this super quick. My dispute to that. I actually agree with you in the sense of that people should not be censored. I 100% agree with that. People should not be censored. They should be able to say whatever they want. You should be able to get your voice out there in some way, shape, or form. Here's my thing. This is not YouTube's fault. This is not a corporation's fault. This is our fault as a people and as individuals for giving them the power to do that. We are using their platform right now. That is our choice. We sign the terms of agreement or the terms of service. We're the ones who say we will use this to get our voice out there. And all of us combined since 2007 or 2006 when YouTube was created, and we've all formed up and done this together as a society, basically. We gave them that power to censor us by choosing this as our outlet.
But at some
point we have to as people stand up and say, no, this isn't the outlet we're going to use.
Right.
We have to get our voice out in other ways. And it's hard to do, Jesse, but just because something's difficult to do doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do.
I think whenever it's so...
John, spoken like a true libertarian, my friend. You are correct, sir. I'm going to have to side with John on this one. You're right. It's a corporation. When it first started, it was a much freer corporation. It was purchased by Google, which is CIA. Everyone here knows this, I think. The CIA owns Alphabet, which owns Google, which owns YouTube. So it's a CIA front company. I say this very openly on my channel. You can Google this, and you will see this is true. And you are correct, sir. You go to a different platform that's freer. That's what you do. The market should provide for this. And if it doesn't, then something will spring up to provide for that need.
And the market does provide for it. The problem we run into, I see, is the same thing Paul mentioned earlier, where you talk about comfortability and not comfortability, convenience. You talk about convenience. It's easy for all of us right now, all four of us. It's easy for us to get on YouTube and get our voice out there, and we're sacrificing censorship for easiness and convenience.
But unfortunately, even if we were to do a mass change to a different outlet, the FTC has heavily gotten involved now. And now they're coming in and saying, if you don't do this or do that or do this, there's going to be lawsuits. We're going to sue you, blah, blah, blah. So the government's heavily involved in how media is portrayed to people. And again, Brian, I'll bring him up again. Like they're pissed, man. They're pissed that people sitting in this basement right here, 3 guys and a guy 3 hours south of us, can reach out to more people and relate to more people than $1 million studio or a $50 million studio. Like, we can relate to more people and we can give them actual information and we can do this kind of thing, and they can't. Like, that's what they're mad about. Like, the FTC has it, man. Like, I don't know where I'm going with that, but
I guess in layman's terms, all I was trying to say is that it's unfortunate, and I do agree with you, Jesse. Nobody should be censored. It's unfortunate that we have put ourselves in this situation, but it's a hole that we've dug for ourselves that we have to crawl out of.
Maybe it's just the fact that me personally, the idea of anything being censored just doesn't register in my mind.
But the First Amendment also doesn't apply to companies. That applies to government.
Like, I hate it. I hate the whole idea of censorship. And if you don't like something, then you don't have to shut them up and be like, oh, well, they can't even exist anymore.
You just shouldn't listen to it if you don't like it.
You don't have to. Oh, I just hate this.
No, I agree with you there. I guess I'm just saying that I understand. Like, Google is a company, YouTube is a company that is out to make money. They will do whatever they can to make that money, and that includes censoring people and recommending stupid videos that everyone will watch because they're fun little, like Fortnite and everything else. That's how they're going to make their money. So that's what they're going to recommend. That's what they're going to do. And they will censor us so that more of that stupid stuff gets out there that people want to watch. I don't know. It's like I said, it's unfortunate, and there's no.
I don't know.
There's not a good solution.
If the etymology was that simple, I think it was actually a little more complex because. Now, remember let's talk about Alex Jones and Mike Adams, the health ranger, for a second here. YouTube platforms, both very huge, very powerful, lots of subs. Mm-hmm. Well, they went after Alex Jones first in the form of demonetizing. They did the same thing to Mike Adams. They demonetized their channels. But, that was basically didn't agree with what he was saying. They said, our advertisers are offended with what you're saying, therefore you're demonetized. But the fact of the matter was, these guys literally were bringing in a lot of people viewing on YouTube, which brought in a lot of revenue, period. They lied about, basically whether or not the advertisers were offended. But then it came down the shutting down of channels, literally making them disappear. And all of us face this threat on YouTube that are not monetized now. With the new rules that came in December 10th or January. I can't remember.
December 10th, yeah.
December 10th. So now it's literally, YouTube is hurting. They're losing $1 billion a year, and Google is covering that loss. And that's because advertisers have left. Here's what happened. When they got rid of these big YouTubers or demonetized them or got rid of them, whichever, effectively they're both the same thing as far as advertisers are concerned.
You're absolutely right.
What they were doing is they were putting Ford truck commercials in kids playing with Legos. And it's, Ford was getting pissed. It's like, we're not going to sell any trucks to 5-year-olds who are playing with Legos. It's just not going to happen. But that was the only platforms they had left that were advertiser friendly. So YouTube shot themselves in the foot. They made bad decisions, but it's their right to make bad decisions. Their parent company is making enough money to cover their losses, and now YouTube has got a new strategy, a business plan, that basically means if you're not commercially viable, you're on the chopping block because it's costing us money to stream your wares. Any video you produce, it costs us money to share it. And so if you're not commercially viable, if you're not monetized, there's a possibility your channel may disappear. So we all face that threat now, unfortunately. But that's kind of the etymology of what happened with Google and with YouTube.
And I still don't understand that because it's just an advertisement for a video that you're watching. Like the person is watching a video and then they see a Tide ad, and then Tide gets upset because this person specifically was trying to see something. Like let's say it's like even something as outlandish as like a KKK Klansman giving their opinion on something horrible, right? Like even that's not a representation of your company. That's just an ad that's flowing through YouTube.
That's not how companies think, man.
I don't understand that at all. Like
that's just not how companies think.
It's
ignorant, but it's not what they. That's not what they think.
I just don't understand it. I don't get it.
But at the same time, do you not? Okay, the human species. Do you not believe there's some idiot out there?
No, it's because people get offended super fucking easy.
You don't think there's an idiot out there who will watch a Tide commercial and be like, "Yo, this Tide commercial was on a KKK thing? Fuck Tide." There's an idiot out there who will say that.
I still how you correlate the two is just blows my mind.
People are dumb, man.
That sounds so ignorant to me. I don't understand it, and I could be wrong, and maybe I'm just not getting the full picture of it. But it doesn't register in my brain. I don't know.
But as for what Patrick was saying with the whole not commercially viable and all that, is the fact that like right now, if we're not monetized, there's no ads on our videos, which means that it costs Google right now. It costs them money for what we're doing. When we post up a video, that takes up bandwidth, storage space, all that nonsense terms that I don't know what they all mean. That costs them money.
That sounds like a really easy way to say, oh, if you're not liberal because the liberals won the culture war, and everything else outside of that is really taboo because if you're not liberal, you're not cool and you're not progressive in all this, well, we're shutting you down, basically.
Yeah.
It sounds like a really bullshit way to be able to do that. Yeah.
It sucks, but it doesn't mean it sucks. It doesn't make it not true, though.
Yeah. I feel like we talked about
this. It does
maybe
suck.
Once or twice.
It is a terrible thing. But guys, I'm on DTube. I'm on BitChute. I'm on Library. I'm on different platforms in case YouTube decides that it's my head that goes on the chopping block next time. So, I mean, I'm ready for that. And the kind of things I talk about are things they shut down channels for. I speak the truth, even if the truth is going to cost me my platform, on YouTube. And that's, I'm willing, once I'm a guy fighting the Second Amendment fight, last thing I'm going to do is start, I don't want to say watering things down just to be on YouTube, but the fact is a lot of people do. Like, for instance, you guys know this whole thing with this Greta Thunberg, however she pronounces her name.
Mm-hmm.
Channels were getting shut down because people were attacking her. She's made herself a public personality. She did it knowingly. I've done videos about her. Thankfully, nothing's happened to me for it, but I'm small. I've got, less than 2,000 subscribers. But big channels that were going after her were getting strikes because they were, what do they call it again? They were bullying her. They have a bullying policy now on YouTube. So that's what they actually called it.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's another one where it comes down to, and I feel like we're kind of going in circles with it now as far as the YouTube thing goes. That's something that, like, I feel like you and I will always disagree on that, and that's fine. We can
that's just
disagree. It's just we're gonna go in circles in that because I'm like,
well, again, it comes.
But we still get along, right? We still get along.
Yeah, you're allowed to disagree and have a conversation.
We can still, we can still hang out every day. Like, that's just.
It comes down that the government got their hands into it. Is what it comes down to. The FTC has implications now for certain things. I mean, that's ultimately what it comes down to. Is the government now has control, and probably have had control for so long. I mean, and I've told these guys, man, there was like many years ago on YouTube where you had channels like ours. And like you said, man, and I greatly appreciate what you said about our channel. Like, we would have grown like 6 or 7 years ago if we had this podcast, like, substantially. Because
part of that has to do with saturation too, not just censorship. Part of that's saturation. The market's extremely saturated now. There's so many people doing this as to where in 2007 there were less people doing podcasts.
Dude, if you just go through... if I get on YouTube every night and I watch YouTube and I watch videos on top of videos, and my recommended are right when I get on the app, like, dude, it's almost depressing. Like, the videos that are recommended to me, like, I almost to the point where I don't even want to watch YouTube anymore. I have to actually go to my subscription feed, which I never used to do. I never used to go to my subscription feed because I'm always I want to see new channels. I want to see new content. I want to see all this, all that. Mm-hmm. But it's to the point now where they're just trying to feed me Fox News. They're just trying to feed me just this mainstream shit that I don't give two shits about.
It's curated content.
No, they came out and said they're only going to
content, but it's advertiser friendly, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. The whole thing's like I said. I feel like we're going in circles.
Yeah. I'm just saying that's just what it's at. That's completely what it's at.
Do you think, Pat? I'm going to ask you a question really quick. Do you think that
Sure.
libertarians and Republicans are too quiet about their opinions? Like, I brought up the culture war earlier, and about how back in the 70s. It's cool to be liberal, and this is the new progressive thing, which is deemed, the progressive thing to be. Do you think we're too quiet as a group of people when it comes to libertarians, Republicans, people on the right side of politics? Do you think we need to be more vocal, or do we just get stamped out really quick, right when we try to be?
Well, that's interesting that you should mention that, because my take on this is actually quite clear. Pardon me. Republicans and libertarians are generally working, and they have less time to get actively involved in politics. Now, I'm not going to say, okay, and by the way, this may be offensive to some people. I'm not trying to be offensive, but this is just purely a numbers game here. Generally, people who are on some type of public services generally tend to vote in people who are promising more money, more services, and those are the ones who are pretty much at home or have more time at home, let's put it that way. And so that is the snake eating its own tail. Basically the libertarians and conservatives are generally the ones who are out there working, and they don't have time to get involved. On the other side of the aisle, you have a lot more folks that are on services and they're staying home more. So without being more offensive, I mean, that's the easiest way to put it. And by the way, I've seen this personally. I've actually seen this with many folks. Libertarians and conservatives need to start speaking out. They need to find the time. Some are busy raising families. They're busy working a job, but they've got to find time to speak out.
I'll
tell you what, gang. Go ahead.
I was just saying you make an excellent point. A perfect Paul, I feel like with your personality, you'd love to be like an activist for something that you believe in. But how, man? You barely get an hour a night to do a podcast. An hour, sorry, not a night. Once a week. You get Sunday nights to do a podcast with us. You got 2 kids.
60
you
hours
got a wife, and you work 60 hours a week.
Yeah, there's no time.
Yeah,
absolutely no time.
No, so that very much fits. Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, though. I mean, this is, once again, speaking as a libertarian, I have pretty much written off the federal government at this point. I just don't really care. I'm not getting involved on the federal government side anymore. It's upsetting. All the legislation that comes out of there is just upsetting to me. No matter how many phone calls I make, I can't seem to change anything. No matter how many emails I send, I can't change anything. It's just literally socialism and corporatism on steroids in D.C. So I'm concentrating on my state, which is Missouri. Maybe we can make things.
Oh, I think we might have lost you there.
Yeah, we definitely did.
Yeah. Oh, that's unfortunate.
Man, that was bad timing.
Yeah, well, no, we'll just reconnect.
Man, I hate losing momentum like that.
Yeah, no.
I'm gonna just go audio on it, man, because the connection was poor.
I'll be right back.
You might hang up and let him call you.
That's very true because he had issues with his PC.
Yeah, no. Well, he said he doesn't have great internet where he's at either.
Yeah,
which I've lived down in that area, and I know the internet is awful there.
Yeah.
Absolutely awful. You got to use like Windstream or some made-up nonsense that nobody likes.
Yeah.
CenturyLink.
I've heard of CenturyLink, but not WindLink. I don't know what that
Windstream?
Is. Yeah.
A Bapa Booey.
Hey Pat, I'm gonna do audio just to finish it off, man. Oh, there you are. Cool.
Yep. Sorry about that, gang. I've had some network connectivity issues here for the last little bit here.
That sounds worse than the coronavirus.
You guys are coming through kind of blocky and everything, and then it just went away altogether. It just came back.
Yeah, we lost you. We lost you mid conversation there.
Okay. But let me, finish up the point of what I was saying. And that was, I just don't have any faith that the federal government can do something that's really actually good for the people anymore. I don't have faith that they can do the right thing because I've seen them do the wrong thing too many times. And that includes the conservative side. And I hate to say it that way, but it just happens to be the truth. So that's why I'm concentrating on Missouri. Maybe we could do something to help the folks out, here. While they're trying to take away guns in Washington, D.C., we can work on keeping the guns in Missouri. You know what I mean?
No, that's
absolutely.
Honestly, that's a great point, and that's a good way to wrap it back to because I had something to say a long time ago at the beginning of the podcast that I never mentioned because we moved on from that. But to wrap it back to the beginning where you're talking about the whole separation of federal and state and how we're doing this, the law now with the gun control, or not gun control, but the Second Amendment thing and everything like that. For me, a big part of it is the gun thing's important too. Don't get me wrong. You guys have, been very clear about that. For me, though, it's almost not bigger picture, but I'm excited about the fact that we are making laws as a state that prohibits the federal from doing something in that state. Think about what we can do with that when you move on from just guns.
It's the fact this is already part of the plan. Actually,
I know.
You're
That's
absolutely correct.
It's amazing though. Like to me, that's the big deal. So here's the thing: to anybody listening to this, and I wish I could have said this earlier in the podcast. To anybody listening to this, whether you're in Missouri or a different state, the biggest deal about this, even if you're 100% for gun control, and for whatever reason you hate the Second Amendment and everything else, this bill or this whatever, I guess it's a bill. The most important part about it isn't the gun thing. It's the fact that we're doing something that separates our state from the Fed. And that's important for every person and every state. Ignore the gun part of it. That's important regardless.
Yep, I agree.
Absolutely.
Thank you for saying that.
I agree 100% as well. I mean, what more could come with that? You know, a lot of different things could happen. And who knows? I mean, I feel like everyone has the picture in their head that basically government controls everything, and the state really doesn't have power. To know that the state has power, I think, is very powerful.
No, it should, because
it's almost a part of the checks and balances thing that our founding fathers wanted to have in place anyway, to make sure that it had to go through a different process to make sure that this is okay. It's got to go through this. It shouldn't just be, the federal government is this overruling power. The state has power too.
No, we're too big.
It's got to go through that as well.
We're too big as a nation, honestly. Like, people are different. There are different cultures and different communities in a city by city basis, town by town, state by state, district by district. Like, there's a difference in people. Californians are different than Missourians. We're all people at the end of the day, but we have a very different thought process of what should be happening, which is why states should make their own laws. Because realistically, like, this is going to be a little out there, and I feel like I've mentioned this before, but realistically, there shouldn't even be a federal law. Like, the federal law should be about, like, money and military and foreign affairs. All that should be, like, federal stuff that we all kind of agree on. But, like, simple stuff like don't murder people. Like, murder shouldn't even have to be a federal law. That should be a state law. And there's not going to be a state that makes murder legal. And if there was, everybody would move out of that state. So you're never going to have that in the first place. You can make laws different. In Colorado, weed's legal. You could have a city where meth is legal. You know what? Or not a city, a state where meth's legal. You know what's going to happen? It's going to be filled with meth heads, and everybody who's not a meth head is going to get the hell out of there. And then that state's not going to make any money off of taxes or anything else like that. So it's probably not going to work. So they're probably not going to make that law in the first place. You can have this all separately divided for different communities and go where you want and do what you want and be in the state where you agree with what's going on.
Yep. And that's the beauty of the 10th Amendment, isn't it? The states can decide for themselves. The founding fathers figured that out. Hey, what power wasn't allocated or loaned to the federal government will be available to the states, and the states can choose how they want to use that power. It's that simple. It really is truly that simple. And Missouri is trying to actually use the 10th Amendment to get their Second Amendment rights back.
And that's what I'm saying. That's I guess the overall point that I was making is that that's the greatest part about it. It's not even the Second Amendment for me. I mean, the Second Amendment part is super important, don't get me wrong. But for me, the most important part is the fact that we're taking power back as a state, and that other states should follow suit. Even if it has nothing to do with the Second Amendment, they should at least follow suit with taking power over something for themselves that's not federally regulated.
Yep, I agree. And that's, basic human rights. These are the rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are guaranteed. And if the government is taking those away, by the way, I've said on a podcast just not a week ago that every time a bill comes out of Washington, I feel like my right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are being infringed upon. It's just taking more away from us, more rights, more regulations, more red tape. This is what England's trying to do. And by the way, we got January 31st coming up pretty quick, the Brexit, where they're trying to get away from the EU, just like we were trying to get away from England because of all their taxation and their regulation.
Yeah, I mean, it's really no different.
So, England's gone full circle in that regard. So even they're recognizing it's out of control. They don't want to deal with it anymore.
And I think that's going on in a lot of places in the world. The amount of protests that you see, and it's hard to see that because obviously a lot of it's not covered, but people do find ways to find out that there are people protesting out there. Hong Kong obviously is a big example.
Sure.
Venezuela.
What if they had guns, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
What if they had guns? It'd probably be a little bit
They're
different over there.
using bows and arrows, gang.
Yeah. And Molotovs. And I think maybe it is coming in full circle, man. Maybe people are all woke and waking up and smelling the coffee.
That word. I use it too, but I hate that word.
I hate the word woke.
It's slowly and surely happening, and it's inevitable that if the government or whatever power or force that be continues to hamper down on the people below, the mass amount of people, we're going to break eventually. It's bound to happen. It's just a matter of what you said, Johnny. How comfortable are we? I think is ultimately what it comes down to.
Yep. And that's that. By the way, I wanted to make the colloquialism clearer. England is leaving the EU. So think of the EU as kind of like the United States. It brings a lot of countries together. England has now decided we need to leave this thing. This thing is becoming too expensive. Their regulations are stifling. I mean, we can't do it anymore. Small businesses can't even start in England anymore. There's too much red tape and regulation. So, it's kind of a microcosm to what we're doing in Missouri to try and separate us from the federal government on the Second Amendment. So we're doing something that's, very similar. So, and all it takes, and by the way, we don't have to ask the government, and when I mean the federal government, for permission to do this. We already have it. It's the 10th Amendment.
Yeah.
We just got to get the people to decide this. So,
which is a large feat.
Yeah, that's, the part of the grassroots effort. The people of Missouri have to call their representatives, call their senators, say, I want this. I want Second Amendment freedom from the federal government.
Well,
that's all they got to do.
And everyone's scared of the federal government.
But I can assure you,
they're now. It's not like just the government is, government works for me. No, now it's this overruling force that everybody's scared of. I think is what probably it comes down to.
Right, and who was it who said when it's Thomas Jefferson said this is when the government fears the people, you have freedom. When the people fear the government, you have tyranny. Mm-hmm. That's what we have here. We have a tyranny.
And it's been this way for a long time.
Yes. And the IRS is a great tool to sow the seeds of tyranny. And with this fake money system that we have that isn't real, yet literally they'll put you in jail if you're not giving that monopoly money to the government. That they're constantly devaluing through inflation. I mean, the federal government does so many things that are just 100% illegal and immoral, but no one challenges it anymore. Most of the bills coming out of the federal government are illegal and unconstitutional. Most of the laws coming out are technically, I think someone's actually said it's about 81% of anything that comes out of Washington, D.C. is actually against the Constitution of the United States.
That wouldn't surprise me.
So where is the Supreme Court on this? Well, they're too busy telling us that, basically abortion is legal. It is not legal. It has never been legalized by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court doesn't make laws. They made a decision that affected two people in 1973, and that was Roe and Wade. Yet everyone thinks that's the law of the land because of precedent. A law is not done by the Supreme Court. Laws cannot be done from the bench. Yet we have gotten away from that too. We let that happen now. But I'm telling you, Roe v. Wade did not make abortion legal in the United States. It didn't. It's just a fact. But everyone believes it did. Therefore, it becomes the reality. So, and let's go other decisions made by the Supreme Court. Eminent domain, where the government can just come and take your property if they find a better use for it. I mean, since when has that been legal? Well, since eminent domain. I don't remember the year that went through, but there's a lot of illegalities going on with the federal government. Like I said, everything that happens on the federal level is very upsetting to me personally, and never anything good coming out of it. Always more laws, more red tape, more regulation, more taxes, more restrictions. I'm tired of it.
We're going back to square one. We're going back to what it was before.
That's just why it should be by states, though. I mean, it's basically it's common, or it should be common sense for most people. Would you rather have someone who doesn't even live in the same area as you, who doesn't live the same life as you, making rules for you 1,300 miles away? Or would you rather have someone making rules for you who lives 200 miles away, who's probably in a similar situation? Yeah, maybe they're more well off because they're politicians and the world's not perfect, but they're closer to the situation that you yourself are in. And they're closer to the same communities.
They're probably held more accountable. They're probably held more accountable whenever they're in direction to your community.
If I have to have someone set boundaries for me, if it's required for someone to make rules for me, I'd rather it be someone that I have at least a chance of brushing shoulders with and talking to about it. I'm never going to get to talk to Trump, but I can maybe talk to a state senator, my mayor, the mayor of this city that we live in. There's a chance that I can get an appointment at some point in time. I'd rather have that person be the person making laws for me.
Yep, agreed. Also, someone who's probably not being controlled by a corporation.
Yeah, hopefully.
Good luck finding somebody that's
that's
like
always
that.
going to happen. But
well, we're a little. Go ahead one more time. Sorry.
Oh no. So basically, that's the situation we find ourselves in. Is basically the representatives that we have in the federal side, for representatives and senators, don't represent the people anymore. They just don't. Look at Obamacare. No one wanted it. They shoved it down our throats. We didn't have a choice. And to make matters worse, they didn't read the bill.
I was going to say I still haven't.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just real quick. I was going to say I still haven't met someone who was like, I'm really happy that Obamacare was a thing. I haven't ran into a single individual that was excited about that.
Yep. That bill was really good for hospitals and insurance companies. It was horrible for patients and doctors. So that's who the bill hurt, was patients.
So it hurt.
Doctors.
It hurt people and helped
everything
corporations,
that was
right?
The most important, the two most important out of the three.
The most important factors of the relationship of healthcare is the patient and the doctor. They're the ones who got screwed.
I'm still pissed off that I paid all of my Obamacare fines at the end of the year because I refused to get health insurance.
I never paid those. I hate saying that out loud on the podcast, but we've talked about this behind the scenes. I never paid a single one of those, and
it actually, Pat, it stopped me from being able to have my name signed on a house because I didn't pay those fees. So that's how effective it was, or impactful in my life it was, for not paying those non-healthcare having fees.
Well, that's something that, by the way, if we had a larger group of people, I'm sure we would get 90% of them, or at least 82% of them, saying the same thing you guys are saying and I'm saying, is it was a horrible decision and it affected me negatively. But the thing is people have to remember that literally at the ballot box if they choose to vote, or, basically just kind of start working on removing themselves from the system somehow. Not saying that I have the answers to this. There's others that do with YouTube channels. But Obamacare was a travesty. It never should have passed. Never. And the fact that they didn't read the bill before they passed it is disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. It was a 2,800-page bill. I submit to you guys, one thing that they don't do in Congress anymore is they used to have bill readings. You guys remember that when you're younger, maybe?
I don't.
No,
actually.
I don't remember that.
Okay. They used to actually read the bills, any bills that was proposed by anyone in Congress. They would actually stand up and read them to Congress. So they kept them short and pithy. not the 2,800-page
Stephen King novel
bill. Yeah. So, but at any rate, they don't do that anymore anyway. And to make matters worse is they don't read them in their offices either. They don't read the bills anymore. They just go talk to, whoever's the majority leader for the Republican Party. Hey, how should I vote on this? Or worse yet, go talk to a corporation CEO or captain of industry. How should I vote on this?
I was going to say, it's just the people who pay them how to vote on it.
Correct. So, and this isn't, I didn't intend this to be bash the federal government night or anything, but, I just wanted to bring some truths out, about what we all face as Americans.
You can bash the federal government on this podcast anytime.
Anytime.
We're all for it.
Okay, gotcha. I feel at home here. You guys have made me feel very welcome.
Trust us, we're okay with it on this podcast. We can go on for hours about federal government, how it's bullshit.
And so the important messages about the Federal Reserve, I don't think we're lost on the audience. Guys, we're playing with monopoly money here. The American dollar is monopoly money. It's worthless, yet they make us work for it. They make us pay taxes in it. How do we know? Talk to your boss and see if they'll pay you in Bitcoin or silver. The answer is no. Why? They're not taxable. Sorry. The federal government doesn't allow that because you can't pay your taxes with silver or Bitcoin. We should be able to choose what we want for money instead of that being shoved down our throats. And frankly, a worthless paper currency like the dollar that's constantly being inflated away is not a good choice.
Yeah, I think I'm pretty sure it's like 8% that you have to have in return. Like if you just had $1 in a money market account, you need to get at least 8% back each year to match inflation.
No, it's like 4.4.
It's 10. It's 10%.
10% a year?
I've heard 8%. My understanding is 8%. But this is from like a Dave Ramsey.
Either way.
Like the basic Dave Ramsey financial. I don't know if you know who that is, but just like.
Yeah, I do.
I really like Dave Ramsey, actually. I don't like his religious side of things, but I really like the way that he handles finances, and I really like Dave Ramsey, just outside of the religious stuff that he has to say. But that was always my understanding, is if you just have money sitting and it's not making at least 8% back for you, you are losing money, and it's being I don't know, like Thanos in the end of Endgame, just, the snap of a finger, just dissipating, whatever it is.
Yep.
And that's, man, the fact they don't teach that in high school. Once again, just like simple
education,
simple understanding of this.
Financial institution and education. Those are the two biggest flaws that everything else follows suit. You fix those two things and everything else comes into play.
So you say 10% with like you need to get 10% back basically on your investments. If it's anything less than 10%, then you're losing money with it just sitting there.
That's just to stay
in a fiscal year
with inflation. If you want to make more money for retirement, you need to make much more than 10%. That's just keeping up with inflation. So that's
what I was saying. Just like breaking even. I thought 8% was basically breaking even, like in a fiscal year. But you're saying 10%.
Well, it may have been when those videos came out. It may have been.
That's
years ago.
true.
That's
actually,
years ago.
whenever he came out with those videos, that was probably like, oh man,
7
just
years
right
ago.
After, yeah, no, that probably was 7 years. So it's probably due to inflation change. It probably is more accurately 10% as opposed to 8%. On a yearly basis.
My source is John Williams at shadowstats.com. And Ramsey's okay. I like Ramsey and everything. But by the way, that's a trivial difference. But the fact is, it's higher than the 2% the Federal Reserve keeps telling us it is. So here's
what they say it is? They say
yes, they do.
That is a fucking joke. Sorry.
Yeah, actually, it's a huge problem because baby boomers are retiring and they can't retire and they can't figure out why. Here's the deal. They can't figure out that groceries are going up about roughly 13% a year. Cars are going up 10% a year. The price of medical is going up even higher than that. That's probably
super high.
A year.
We've all seen EpiPens, the price increase.
Yeah, that was like 300% on insulin and EpiPens alone.
There was I don't know what state it was.
What about tuition?
Yeah.
Tuition
you're
for
right.
college.
No, that's
from the 80s. In the past 40 years has been ridiculous.
I remember I talked to them about. I had someone sent me a picture of when they went to school, to the same school that I went to in the 80s. It was like in 87 or something like that, and it was housing and stuff was still like $1,000 or whatever. It was like $1,000 for a semester, but tuition at the school that I went to in the 80s was $80-something a semester for a class or whatever. And for me, I was there for 2 years and I owed like $12,000. They would have been there for 2 years and owed, I don't know, a few hundred. Mm-hmm. Yep. But I guarantee you the amount that money has went up, like minimum wage and living and all that, has not increased by that astronomical amount.
Let's talk about where the rubber hits the road on this, the brass tacks. And that is, basically, it is not worth it to go to college anymore for probably about, I would say, 75% of kids. This is, once again, a harsh reality. We talk about truth, though, right, gang? We're about the truth.
Absolutely.
About 75% of these kids that are going to college need to be going to trade schools and learn a trade and stop going to college, because, number one,
it's like 80%
so
cheaper.
Expensive. Yeah. It's a lot cheaper to go to a trade school than it is a college. So, but that's my message, is that a lot of kids out there, want to make, go to college, and when I get out of college, I'll be making $150,000 a year. It just doesn't happen.
It doesn't. Yeah.
They've spent, they've got a mortgage now, and it's actually their student loan. It's, $150,000. It's $200,000 coming out of college for a 4-year degree or a 6-year degree. And it takes them, their lifetime to pay it back.
Oh, yeah, I should say that $12,000 I owed, that's after already paying a lot while I was in school. It was obviously more than $12,000 for 2 years. It was like 35 or something like that.
Yep, I'm going to take a stab that I'm just a tad older than you guys. I'm 48 years old.
A little bit.
We're all
in our 30s.
We're all right around 30, give or take a couple of years.
Real early 30s. over here.
Would you guys believe me if I told you that I had an opportunity to go to the University of Minnesota Duluth for $5,000 a year when I got out of high school, and I turned it down?
Oh, man.
$5,000 a year. But that's how much it was when I was 18 years old.
What was it, like $5,000 to you? Like, I mean, how hard was it to make $5,000 in that time?
Not that much difference.
I don't know, because actually wages don't go up with inflation generally. So I don't know what the average wage was back then, but I was probably making about, I'm going to say I was making about $18,000 or $20,000 a year back then. So it'd be about a quarter of my income for the year, which I could have paid, if I went. I chose not to.
That is still very cheap, for sure.
Something that is so frustrating to me, because I think I talk about education so much on this podcast, and the fact that we as a nation have almost tossed education to the side, and it's just like, let's make money off education, when don't you want smart people deciding your future whenever you're old? You want well-educated people in office. You want well-educated people running corporations, making moral decisions. Like, I'm like, that's fundamental. That's fundamental.
That's what this
you
podcast
want education,
is about, Jesse.
You want education as readily available as possible. I like Bernie Sanders for this. I like Bernie Sanders for this for this one particular reason, is I think that education is a fundamental thing for development of any civilization, and if you start lacking in that, you fall behind, and it becomes an awful thing. And that's
what happens if your education system becomes so corrupted with special interests, bad science, Common Core, and basically that's being pushed as the new best thing? Like, for instance, I mean, would this be a good time to bring up, like, for instance, global warming? Because global warming, I'm sorry, they're calling it climate change now. Because it looks like actually the Earth is cooling, in the aggregate. But literally setting up a taxation system just to tax the piss out of people because they're burning too much carbon is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of before. They're charging us for air. By the way, this is, a study of mine. So the science is definitely flawed. It's fraudulent on this whole global warming deal. It's fraudulent. And this is NOAA participated in the fraud. So did NASA. And so have university professors all over the world, poking and prodding the data. If you torture the data long enough, it'll tell you anything you want. That's what they've done with global warming or climate change. So basically, it is not about, quote unquote, saving the planet. It's about setting up a massive taxation construct to tax the piss out of the citizens of the world till the end of time. And most of that money would go to the Rothschilds. Are you guys familiar with the Rothschilds?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Heard of them once or twice.
That's where almost all the money would go for the global carbon taxation system. It would be going to the Rothschilds. But there are other beneficiaries, the Gores, the Clintons, the Bushes.
AOC.
AOC. I'm not sure about AOC if she was invested.
I was going to say, I doubt she's getting money from that.
Cap and trade. That system was going to be set up in Chicago. And I don't remember all the investors in it, but they were all politicians. The ones that were pushing it, even ones who were against it, were investing in it. But it was all about taxation. That's what this whole, global climate change thing is about taxing the people even more money, centralizing all of that. And the top of the pyramid there, the capstone, is the Rothschilds. So this is the whole global climate change thing is a fraud. It's as fraudulent as the U.S. dollar is, and they know it. I've done podcasts on this before. The kid's going to Dianne Feinstein's office. You guys are familiar with Dianne Feinstein. She's in California. And a bunch of kids going to her office specifically to complain that she's not doing enough about climate change. Dianne Feinstein gave them an education. And she said in her own special way, get the F out of my office. I know what I'm doing. And she doesn't believe it either. But she doesn't want kids coming in there and telling her what to do. None of these politicians truly believe in it. There might be, a couple of fervent, worshipers at the idol of global warming, like AOC and, select others. But the guys, this just isn't real. It's another made-up thing to tax the people with. And by the way, I'm old enough. I'm 48. I remember when we were all going to die from global cooling. We were going into an ice age back in the 70s.
Yep.
And they wanted to set up a similar system for taxing the people to figure out a way out of that system. But they weren't blaming the people for it at the time. They were saying literally this was a solar cycle. One more thing they taught in science. By the way, I'm sorry I hog up a lot of time, and I'm sorry about that.
We love it.
No, this is very interesting,
Yeah,
by the way.
yeah.
I have never heard this particular aspect, so this is educational for me.
I was going to say,
Okay.
I'm digress here real quick, but if we're all okay with this, Paul, you might as well just make this like a two-parter, because we're not going to have a part for next weekend anyways.
For sure,
because
yeah.
of the Chiefs game.
Right.
So
Yeah.
if everybody's got, if everybody's time works out for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. In fact, I would love to come back and do more podcasts, and I will be more of a listener, than a talker, because I just love your channel. But the thing that I learned in science, and this was in 4th grade, this is what I was taught. I went to a private school, by the way. I was taught in 4th grade that the two drivers of temperature on the planet are two things, and that's the sun and volcanoes. That's the driver of temperature on the planet, period. End of story. Nothing else was of consequence. Now, how is it that it changed from the time I was in 4th grade that it was cars that were driving the temperature of the planet? How did that change? How did we not catch that when I was in 4th grade? Well, the reason being is because it's the temperature of the oceans that changed the temperature of the entire planet. It's the oceans. Like Clinton said, it's the economy, stupid. It's the ocean, stupid. The oceans warm up. They warm up from volcanoes on the, in the Pacific Basin, or they're warming up because of, lack of clouds, over the oceans, and they warm up because the sun's hitting them. That's what drives global temperature, is the temperature of the oceans. So somehow we've moved away from that. And by the way, I got to say this, and I know I'm hogging up time here, but just recently, NASA and NOAA have determined that the sun...
What is NOAA?
Sorry. I'm sorry, go ahead.
What is NOAA? That's what I haven't heard.
Assuming that's an acronym.
National Oceanic...
Yep.
Oh, dang it. An Atmospheric Administration.
Okay, sorry, I just hadn't heard of that one. I know NASA, obviously.
Gotcha.
That was not in question form. You just lost in Jeopardy.
There's a test at the end of this, guys, by the way. I forgot to tell you. But NASA and NOAA have recently come out, and this was about 2 or 3 years ago, saying the sun may have more to do with the weather on the Earth than we previously thought.
Oh, wow.
Yep. Yeah. So what I learned in 4th grade, NASA and NOAA just figured out 3 years ago. It's the sun, stupid, and we're going through some pretty strange solar cycles right now. I'm an amateur astronomer. I've been looking at the sun since I was 9 years old. Not directly. Don't do that, anyone.
I was going to say, that could be a bad thing.
Yeah.
But we seriously are lacking in solar spots right now, and we go through cycles like this, but this one's going on significantly longer than anticipated, and it's been reported on. So the sun is quieting down now. So that means we're probably going to be a little, not warmer, but a little bit colder than normal. So,
I could see that happening too. We've talked a lot about. I may not agree with everything you've said about the climate stuff and whatnot, but I for sure. We've talked about before the fact that like climate change, warming, cooling, all of that is a very much cyclical thing that takes place over 50 years, 100 years,
1,000.
We're
years.
No. So we're in the second industrial revolution right now, and because of that, that has to have an effect, right? Because of industry, because it has to have an effect on the environment in some way. But the whole question is, is it to the extent
that we think it is?
That we think it is, because a pebble, like a pebble, right? Like a pebble being dropped in an ocean still makes a ripple, right? Is that what it is, or are they playing it up to be something
like
more
a tidal
extreme?
wave?
And that's kind of how I placed it the last time that we talked about climate change.
Right.
To where I'm like, yes, of course, everything has an effect on everything else. Whenever you start doing something, A affects B, and then this is it. But whenever it's in comparison to everything else, is it really much that they're talking about to where it really has that much of an effect?
But do you give humanity that much credit that we can create a ripple or an effect on the earth that we live on?
No, that's what he's saying, is that it's only a ripple.
It's only a ripple. Right. It's a ripple in the ocean. Because it's a ripple in the ocean.
To go to your point, like the sun has cycles, right? I mean, it's every 12 years that it gets further and closer to the earth. And I think people forget that we have cycles with the sun and how close it gets to the earth and stuff like that. And we've only been collecting data on weather since like the late 1800s.
That's another thing,
too. So we're forgetting about hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years of weather. I mean, they can go and drill in ice and figure out what it was like a couple million years ago, but we've been in this cycle before, I'm sure, with the way the Earth is right now. And I think all three of us are in agreement that climate change is BS, and you're right.
I don't say it's 100% BS. I'm more on this part that Jesse's saying, where I do think that what we do as humans has an effect. I don't think it's 100% BS. I think that what we do as humans has an effect.
But for them to tax us...
the amount of the effect, I would say, is minuscule and is something that's not drastically changing what's going on.
Well, guys, it's just we could draw a fine line here. I think we all, four of us, can agree on one thing, and that's polluting the planet is a bad idea.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. Carbon dioxide is not actually a pollutant. Carbon monoxide is. Mm-hmm. That's what comes out of cars. So that's a pollutant, but not necessarily a greenhouse gas. But I think we'd be remiss in saying that we would say we're for polluting the planet. We're not. None of us are. But let's look at the greenhouse gases in order of their potency. Number one, water vapor. Water vapor. That is a very potent greenhouse gas. You guys know what humidity does. As soon as you're outside and it's sunny and it's really humid out, it's a lot hotter and stickier than it would be without the humidity, right?
Mm-hmm.
Second one, methane.
I was going to say,
20 times more potent than carbon dioxide.
And you don't see them stopping cow farms. I was just going to say, you don't see them stopping like mass meat industry and cow farms and everything else, even though methane has more of an effect on our atmosphere than your car does.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that, that everyone's wrong and I'm right and this and that, the other thing. I'm not really saying that. I'm just saying carbon dioxide is literally such a minute greenhouse gas. It's so, unimpressive in its ability to warm up the planet. It's just asininely astounding how they've latched onto it and said it's going to kill us all. And by the way, carbon dioxide makes up less than 0.5% of our atmosphere. So it's a very tiny gas, and as far as plants seem to really like it. Actually, we should have more of it because plants do better with more carbon dioxide. It's a fact. It's what they live on. We breathe oxygen; they breathe carbon dioxide. Symbiotic relationship between plants and man have been going on for millions of years, hundreds of years, thousands, whatever. So, but at any rate, the attack on carbon dioxide by Obama to make it a poisonous gas that must be regulated was one of those things that came out of Washington. And once again, by EPA, executive decree, this did not go through Congress, was very upsetting to me. I'm tired of this stuff. Fake science, fake laws, just fakery everywhere around Washington, in regards to this stuff.
Because people in fear are easier to control, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. But also people being dumbed down to the point they are, was something that I didn't even anticipate.
That's the real issue, not even fear. They used to use fear. I don't think they use fear anymore. I think they use ignorance.
What's the amount of scientists that
wow, you were so correct on that. That it's more ignorance than fear.
Yeah, no, they don't try to get us. They still use fear. They still try to get us scared.
Fear is the byproduct of ignorance, really.
What's the amount of the actual scientists that have actually signed a petition to say that global warming isn't actually real? It's a massive amount of scientists.
Yeah, I don't know about any document where they're signing saying that global warming or man-made global warming. Let's be more specific, because global warming is happening constantly. So is global cooling. I mean, the atmosphere changes constantly. So, but at the same time, we can get into conspiracy. if we wanted to, and we could talk about chemtrails and HAARP.
Ooh, let's go.
Paul,
No.
Paul gets so heated on chemtrails.
He gets,
Gotcha. All right,
I mean,
we'll leave that one alone.
No, heated in a good way. Paul loves it.
Oh, yeah, I love
you
it.
guys would be able to.
Yeah,
I don't know if I can handle chemtrails right now.
It's not that I love it. It's just that and this is what I tell people, man. And people who are oblivious to the fact that it's not happening, and to me, that's boggling. Because all you have to do is wake up in the morning, go outside, smoke a cigarette, drink a cup of coffee, drink a beer, whatever it is that you would do in the morning.
Damn, what a morning, Paul.
Whatever you go outside.
That is an awesome morning.
Just look up into the sky, right? Just look into the sky, and you will see for yourself. That's it. It's that simple. It's that easy.
Yep. And the synergistic effect of hitting everything with microwaves is astounding to me as well. So basically, you have HAARP in Alaska that uses microwaves to bounce off the ionosphere. They could hit any point on the Earth, within one half of one hemisphere.
Which, by the way, you're not talking conspiracy right now. This is legitimate. This has been on the History Channel. This is documented, what you're talking about right now.
Right. No, the HAARP
The History Channel is all conspiracy theory, by the way. It's no longer history on the conspiracy.
Well, what I'm saying is, like,
that's all the History Channel is.
He's just saying that
conspiracy
HAARP
theory.
is not some made up.
I know.
organization.
Don't reference the History Channel because all they do is conspiracy theory.
Science Channel.
I'm sorry.
You can even go to Science Channel.
I'm sorry.
Continue.
I just had to put that out there. All they do is conspiracy
Fair
theory
enough.
shit now on the History Channel.
Aliens.
High Altitude Aurora Research Project, HAARP. And what I think they're doing is they're warming up all these aluminum particulates they're dropping on us with chemtrails, heating up the upper troposphere, raising it up. Now, what that could do is very interesting things. I mean, they can definitely control weather patterns by doing this. They can prevent rain from falling. They can actually prevent rain from actually hitting the Earth. You raise the troposphere, the clouds will raise by the same degree. So the clouds are normally roughly about 3 miles above the surface of the planet. When it goes up 5 miles above the surface of the planet, most of that rain will evaporate before it hits the ground. So you can prevent rain. So you can do some pretty interesting things with chemtrails and HAARP. Now, are they using them to try and, actually create global warming so we can believe the lie? Maybe. Maybe they're doing that. I don't know. But it is an interesting concept, and it is something people are looking into. And we're talking about very credible scientists looking into this to see if there's any plausibility to the fact that the government may be playing with weather. And the government, of course, denies it. And we'll see. Eventually something will probably come out in this regard.
I think that's crazy because there are two instances that come to mind when we talk about this. There's one where there's a gentleman that's close to a NASA facility, and I've showed you the YouTube video, and it's on YouTube, and you just see this area where they're just pluming clouds into the atmosphere, and he's talking about weather modification and saying that NASA can make it rain. And what do you know? They're pumping full. I mean, it wasn't chemtrails at this point; it was just some sort of building that was producing clouds, and lo and behold, it rained the next day. But the second one is the scientist that talks about chemtrails, and he's huge on YouTube, and he talks about weather modification, and I've told Jesse and Johnny this. What was it? Stanford and Bill Gates came out this year saying that we have to block the sun. Mm-hmm. We have to block the sun because of global warming, and we need to do chemtrails. We need to inject the sky with heavy metals and all this stuff. So, I mean, it's been happening for years. Like I said, just look up into the sky. It's not something that's not happening. You have Bill Gates in high universities talking about doing this thing that's been going on. Yeah. And like the scientist, I forget his name, and I wish I knew his name, but he's a legitimate scientist, and he talks about chemtrails just 100%, just straight up, just tells you what's going on.
Mm-hmm. So, that stuff is real. And, we talk about global warming, being caused by burning of fossil fuels through tailpipes and vehicles, is just asinine. Guys, there's one more thing you may not be aware of, and I'd like to share it with you real quick. And this was happening back in 2002. In 2002, there's a lot of talk about global warming, man-made global warming. Al Gore reigned supreme during that time, books, movies, whatever.
All that was a joke.
Yep.
I hated all of that.
What was also happening, the Earth was warming up. There is no doubt about it. It was happening. And the issue here was, and you guys are going to find this absolutely fascinating. I told you I'm an amateur astronomer. And I do astrophotography, actually. I haven't done it in a while because I don't have time. But But I pay attention to NASA and JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. JPL has on their site, had on their site, so it's nothing you can find now. But back in 2002, we had probes over Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn simultaneously. So we actually had probes, and they were taking mean temperature data of these planets. Now, at the same time the Earth was warming up, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn were all warming up at the same time we were.
I've never heard
Wonder
that
what
shit.
the common denominator of that one would be. Is it fossil fuels, or is it... Oh, I know. It could be the sun.
They're burning oil on Mars. That's obviously the only... That's the only solution.
Elon Musk hasn't established...
foothold in all of those planets.
Yeah, Elon Musk hasn't created alternative energy cars on those planets yet. That's why
apparently,
that is.
we're just using batteries here on Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. It's hard to drive on Jupiter or Saturn.
So that's legitimate, and that document's been put out there on the internet for people to see and observe, but it's not told to anyone through any mainstream media. And if it is, it's probably a 30-second segment.
It's gone now. But I will say one more thing, was an interview, by the way, back when I used to listen to Rush Limbaugh. I had to cut him out back in 2000. I just couldn't take him anymore. And I listened to him every day. And he had on Robert Kennedy's son. I can't remember his name anymore. Maybe you guys remember his son's name.
Jeff Kennedy.
He's a Robert Kennedy. No, it wasn't Joseph. Gosh darn it, I can't remember his name. But he's Robert Kennedy's son, and he's a climate activist. So he was on a talk show with Rush Limbaugh, and he was talking about how gosh darn it, the Earth is warming up, and people need to pay attention, and we're all going to die if we don't do something about this. Basically, placating the systems they were talking about putting in place for cap and trade back then. Now, once again, the brainchild of Enron. By the way, maybe I'm getting into too much right now, but Enron is the one who came up with the scheme for cap and trade. You guys may be going, holy crap, what is he talking about? Is that company that went belly up in 2001? Biggest bankruptcy in American history at the time? Yes, that's the same company I'm talking about. But he was on a talk show, Robert Kennedy's son, and he was literally saying the Earth's warming up. And then basically, and I believe it was the Rush Limbaugh show, Rush Limbaugh said, well, can you explain why Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn are also warming up? And this is actually, you can see this on the JPL website. We're watching the mean temperatures, and they're going up. And so at any rate, he said, well, that's because they're closer to the sun. That's what Robert Kennedy's son said
Nice.
on a national talk show. National talk show. He kind of outed himself there as, first of all, being extremely ignorant of the solar system, but also what difference would it make if they were closer to the sun? If their temperatures were going up, all three planets, there would still be only one common denominator.
Because you have a base, you have a baseline of temperature.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's the farthest one away or the
got
closest one to it. If you have a baseline of temperature and then you see it tracking up, that's...
Yeah, sure, if they were getting closer. But that's not what was happening.
Politicians aren't scientists.
No, he was suggesting they were closer to the sun than the Earth.
Oh, yeah, no, that's hilarious within itself. I'm saying even reasonably, if...
Is it Robert Kennedy Jr.? Is that his name?
This is Bobby Kennedy.
Gosh darn it.
The Kennedy is...
I can't remember.
I wanted to do a Kennedy impression. That's
trust me on
difficult.
that. So, so the climate thing is something that I do talk about. Greta is bringing it up again. She's circling the globe, going to conferences and seminars and UN, gatherings of one nature or another.
Who was it? Arnold Schwarzenegger gave her like a car. He donated her a what are those? Not a Tesla, but it's a. I forget, one of the other fuel economy cars. He gave her one.
Wow.
But either way, like there was a reporter that legitimately went to this conference that she was holding, and I told Jesse and Johnny about this. And when it happened, like you were able to look at the guy went to her car, looked inside the car, and you could just see things that, obviously she's not what she's meant out to be. And you go in there and you talk to people who follow her and who love her and stuff like that. And he said, hey, What would you do if you found these things in her car? And they're like, we would still follow her, or no, that's not true, or they wouldn't even watch the video. I mean, that's to the extent of where that is.
Well, she's definitely making inroads with, people that are activists themselves, Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, yeah.
Prince Charles, most recently Prince Charles, and others.
Who is denouncing being a prince, right? Did he not do that?
What's that?
He's denouncing being a prince, him and his wife?
No, that's, gosh darn it, give me a second here. The royals, that's another freaking mess over there, and I couldn't care less.
Yeah, honestly, screw a monarchy.
Yeah.
Who cares about a monarchy? It's Prince Charles. You're talking about Prince Charles now.
Yeah.
No, who cares about a monarchy?
It's William and Philip is the Queen's husband. Andrew is the one that recently, got caught up with the Epstein stuff. Yeah, and I talk about that quite a bit on my channel too.
That was one of your last videos,
3 or
correct?
4 videos. Yeah, I did a video recently on Epstein, and the fact that Cindy. I don't want to promote my own videos here at this time.
Oh,
but
100%. You're.
Go
for it.
That's promote all of them, man. We don't care.
Well, yeah. The deal here is that everyone knew about what Epstein was doing, but no one did anything, and Cindy McCain said because they were too afraid. So I don't know what we want to do. Do we want to keep our government if they're going to allow a pedophile network to run rampant in their country because they're afraid to take it down? This is to the point where you start thinking about what the Second Amendment was put in place for. And Cindy McCain came out and said it. Everyone knew what Epstein was doing, what he was up to. And by the way, he's just a player.
And
he is not.
He's just a piece.
We've said this before on podcasts because we've covered Epstein a little bit. Is that anybody who can be like, oh, how could a government ever get to that point? Well, there is documented evidence in England with, and I can never remember his name, of
it was a high government official.
He wasn't a high government official. He was a celebrity who funded children's hospitals. They were literally called death rides out in England because they would take little boys from the hospitals that he funded out with these high level political individuals, and they all got caught in this pedophilia ring that happened in England in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I can never remember.
I know what you're
his
talking
name.
about.
I was gonna say that was
but this
as big
happened.
of a deal.
This happened in England. The whole ring was exposed and everything. To think that it couldn't happen over here is ridiculous.
No, it happened for sure.
Yeah, and it absolutely did happen. And I think that it to break down the psychology of somebody in that much amount of power, I think is what it comes down to. Is that we talked about this earlier.
Bill Clinton flying how many times on that plane?
A lot.
27 documented times.
27. That's
almost
insane.
You said the frontal lobe needed to be. It's almost the psychotic people who get into power and the things that they do and the things that they to satisfy them.
And the fact that we look past the fact that Bill Clinton was on that plane 27 times and no one's questioning what happened. I mean, nor will we ever know.
No, America, I never had sexual relations with that woman.
That's pretty good.
Any chance I can do my Bill Clinton impression, I try to do.
Let me do mine real quick.
You do it. Do it.
All right. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky, but I did have hot monkey love with her. And I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt, that woman does not swallow. The biggest joke of all is the fact that was actually Hillary's DNA on Monica's dress. Yeah, I took the fall for Hillary on that one.
Oh man.
As you can tell, I'm not a big fan.
Yeah, I honestly, yeah, no, I'm not a fan of the Clintons either. I've never been a fan of the Clintons, but.
Well, Pat, man, it's been real, man. We're at the 2-hour mark, man. Great podcast.
Wow, it felt like half an hour.
I know. I feel like I could do another 2 hours. I feel like we need to end it.
One day we will do a 4-hour podcast. It will happen. But
I'll tell you what. Let's if you don't mind, I would love to make you guys partners of Truth, Money, and Freedom. And it doesn't really mean a whole lot. It's the fact that I tell people we're partnered. That means you're constantly promoted in my description box. But not only that, I would like to do more of these podcasts with you guys, and we can cover, many different subjects. I don't know much about sports though, so
we don't ever talk about sports.
Once in a while, it's real rare.
Yeah,
it's peppered in here and there.
I did Chiefs podcast for 8 weeks last year, and I really enjoyed it. But man, this is where my heart is. This is where Talk Junkies' heart is, and
we want to keep it to where it's meaningful conversation and
stuff that we think
matters. Sports is not meaningful conversation, even though I love sports and I love football, but it's not meaningful in comparison to everything else that we talk about in this podcast.
Yeah.
So agreed.
We'll talk about it, but I'm 100% down for that. I would love to promote any of your videos in our description below and partner up in that aspect. I mean,
absolutely.
To just grow together and keep that network 100%.
Sure, absolutely. And in fact, I'd love to do more podcasts with you guys. So if you guys have a spot that needs filling, consider contacting me. And if I have the time, I'll be there.
Yeah, for sure.
I've enjoyed this thoroughly, man.
Yeah.
Pat, this has been a blessing on my day, man, to have you come on. This is
thank you, man.
I expected something from you, but not anywhere close to this. I was educated today. I was intrigued today. All of it. This was phenomenal. I'd love to do another podcast.
Educated, intrigued,
yeah,
slightly aroused,
Slightly
just all
aroused.
of it, just everything.
Yeah, there was
Just
all
everything.
All of it.
I
All of
remember
it.
that.
We talked about the Clinton scandal, which gets everybody excited.
Yeah, no doubt.
Again, thank you. And I've been trying to get Brian on the podcast, man. He agreed to it. He was doing a live stream once, and I hit him up on Super Chat. And he's like, yeah, man, I'll do the podcast. Just let me know. So I emailed him. We emailed a little bit, and then there's just nothing after that. And I've tried to email. But either way, I'm so thankful that I found you through him, man. And I appreciate that, and I appreciate you joining our podcast and joining our show. And we definitely look forward to having you on many, many more times, man.
Absolutely.
Before we ended, did you want to shout out your stuff again? Because
yeah,
this is kind of like a second part that you did it at the beginning, but this second podcast they don't really know. So
yeah.
Yep. Basically, Truth, Money, and Freedom podcast is our channel on YouTube, and Truth, Money, and Freedom is the name of our Discord server. So we have both of them. They're very active. The YouTube channel has become very active thanks to Brian at High Impact Vlogs in the last 2 weeks. Gave me a shout out and literally just about tripled the size of my channel just by, literally him saying, guys, check out this video. It's pretty cool. So that was really neat. It jumped up the channel. I never expected anything like that. And but when you guys contacted me and I went and checked out your channel real quick, I said, okay, sure, I'll talk to these guys. But it was when I actually spent a little bit of time and I watched 3 videos. I said, holy crap, wonderful format. And by the way, if you guys check out my channel, I do podcasts all the time with multiple participants. Those are the ones that I like the best. I don't like it when it's just me talking. I'm the only one. I don't like those. I like the interaction.
Oh, yeah, it's much easier just to have a conversation.
So that's where it's at. That's where the exchange of ideas and information happens. That's where minds can get changed.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're all about, is making sure people, basically understand what the truth is. And the truth, and everyone's on a different part of their journey of learning the truth. And some people are, way ahead of us. Some people are way behind us. Maybe we're at the middle of the road, but we can all learn more truth from each other every time we talk.
Well put.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much, Pat, for joining the show. You heard it, Truth, Money, and Freedom podcast, correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Hit him up. And then thank you again for joining, man.
And we'd love to have you back in the future. I think we all agree there. We're down with that.
So have a good night, man.
And of course, I'll promote you guys on my channel. I'm recording this as well, and I'll put it on my channel and put the link for you guys in there as well.
Greatly appreciate it. Greatly appreciate it, man.
From a fellow Missourian to another Missourian, man, thank you for joining Talk Junkies.
Hey, no problem. Thank you for having me. You guys have a wonderful evening. God bless all of you guys.
God bless you too, sir.
Okay, that's it.
Well, there you have it. He kind of beat us to it, but that's Pat from Truth, Money, and Freedom podcast. Check him out on YouTube. Description will be in down below. Hopefully, you guys all like that podcast. Thanks for
that 2-hour podcast.
Yeah.
Well, we'll split it.
Lord of the Rings podcast.
Possibly. But thanks for tuning in. everyone, I mean, anyone who's new from Pat's channel, I really appreciate you guys watching this.
Absolutely. Pat was great, by the way.
Yeah.
By the way, I mean, him and Mike Anderson are tied for number one.
We're number one.
Mike's gonna hate to hear that, by the way.
No, I love
Dude,
Mike
there's
Anderson.
nothing wrong with. There's nothing wrong with.
I'm just kidding.
No, I know what you mean. Nobody wants to hear that kind of. But no, everybody's got. Man,
Nobody's-
all of our guests have been good. I'm just saying,
Yeah.
Pat's been a great guest.
Yeah.
From Crow 777 to Mike Anderson to Patrick Holland to the one guy that said some shit that we were like, oh wow, he can't say that shit. To man, all those people, we appreciate all the guests that come on here, and I love every single one.
That's the point.
It is the point, man. So
and the girl that talked about vaccination.
Oh, Jen. Yeah. No,
Shout out to Jen.
That one was really good.
Shout out to Jen. I'd love to have Jen back on to have
yeah.
more conversation. She was a sweetheart.
Oh, yeah.
She's such a great individual. All the people we've had on the podcast,
Very
man, I feel like
blessed.
we've been blessed.
We have been blessed.
We've been blessed as a podcast to be able to have these individuals give their time and come and talk to some simpletons in Missouri.
100%, man.
So
thank you all for tuning in, man. That's truly what it's about. Is we're trying to spread truth to you guys. Hit that like button. Hit the bell notification.
Oh, we're done stroking our own dicks now?
Yeah. Hit the subscribe button to all our junkies out there.
stay fly and ring the bell.